Paladin and the Ranger are meant to be similar design, both being half caster classes with martial elements, and then ones from the classes that they derive from, being Druid and Cleric respectively. Paladin is a great example of how this combination can be very fruitful, both having their own unique spells and abilities like Divine Smite, the Smite spells, the Steed spells, Lay on Hands, are their own custom abilities and really unique subclasses that end in this wonderful Capstone subclass feature, which add uniqueness as well as really cool, powerful Capstone options that allow you to become an embodiment of your oath, which is really unique and cool. And the fact that the Ranger is supposed to mirror the Paladin really shows how off the Ranger is, considering its subclasses, at least originally, just fall short. The Beastmaster just doesn't feel like how you want it to. They do have flavorful spells, like shooting volley of arrows and more arrows, but their abilities like the favorite enemy just really fall flat and are very conditional. So I think we need to do something about this Ranger. Now today I'm just going to be focusing on mainly the subclasses and Capstone abilities, because the Ranger's Capstone ability really falls short, especially based off of a weak ability in the first place, which is favorite enemy. Now, what if we mirror the Paladin's ability and make subclass Capstone features? This would add a uniqueness to each Ranger subclass and make them feel powerful and cool. Xanathar's Guide is a great example of how to do Ranger subclasses. Not only does it add in extra spells unique to that subclass, but in addition, they each are flavorful and have pretty darn awesome abilities. While I won't be fixing the Beastmaster or Hunter subclasses, I think that what Xanathar's Guide has done this sort of power creep, which I think is of course justified because the initial subclasses weren't that powerful. But if we want to keep the Beastmaster and Hunter at that same level, they should have their own spells as well. Now these are by no means set in stone. When you look at these and try to fit spells into them, it doesn't always work, which is why I think it is important to kind of build those added spells with your subclass, which is why it doesn't always work. But I'm going to try to do it here, and you can incorporate the elements you like or don't, or maybe it can inspire you. Either way, I think it would be a good feature to have these custom spells in these older subclasses, because they're weak in the first place. Now, for Beastmaster, for 3rd level I did find familiar. Now, this is kind of debatable on what kind of Beastmaster you want to play, whether it's solely connected to that one beast or just kind of being one with the beast in general, which this fits a lot more in tune for. There's other options, of course, but I think this was the most fitting. The 5th level or 2nd level spell, Warding Bond. I love this as a spell for Beastmaster Rangers because it's perfect. The fact that you can cast it and form that bond with your beast and make it stronger while you're close with your beast is incredibly flavorful, and I think would be a really awesome feature to have for the Beastmaster Ranger. The 3rd level spell, which would get at 9th level, I'm really not set on. Phantom Steed is kind of a long shot in this scenario, as there isn't a lot of great options at 3rd level for the Beastmaster Rangers. Of course, if you guys have any great ideas for what could be the Beastmaster spells, feel free to let me know, or incorporate whatever you'd like. 4th level spell, given at 13th level, Dominate Beast. I think this works well with the class. The fact that you have stronger connections with beasts and you can subdue a beast with your sort of connection with nature and master the animal, as well as form a bond with it, sort of taming the wild, I think is flavorful. And at 17th level, again, where you get your 5th level spell, again, there's not a lot of great options for this. I'm just going to say that in the first place. Either considered Rary's telepathic bond or insect plague. Sort of either creating a bond with you or other beings, or insect plague just sort of mastering the animals and sending them at your opponents. Just sort of a cool way to add a powerful spell into the Beastmaster class, but of course, you might want to fine-tune this on what type of Beastmaster you're really going for. Gosh, my throat is dry. Now, for Hunter, there's a lot more options. At 3rd level, which is your 1st level spell, I chose Thunderous Smite. 2 of the other classes chose the other types of smites, but Thunderous Smite is the most straight damage, and I think Hunter is that more aggressive type of ranger. The 2nd level spell, which you get at the 5th level, there's honestly a ton of options you can do. I think Flame Blade or like Shadow Blade or one of those abilities that is more combat oriented would be great for this, considering it's not really given to a ton of classes that work well with it. You know, like Wizard or Druid aren't really going to be able to take advantage of these types of spells. So giving them to Ranger, I think, is really flavorful. Blur, I don't see the spell used a lot, and I think it would encourage its use, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad spell, but it's not often seen, and it has some flavorability. Blindness, Deafness, just, again, this way of subduing your opponent, and is not necessarily combat-focused or the most heavily aggressive, but is a cool way for the hunter to get new things in their toolbox, or Hold Person. Just a really great spell. So there's a lot of options for 2nd level. 3rd level, Fear might be a good option, but that's already in another subclass as their 3rd level spell, so I chose Haste. It's a very combat-oriented spell and works great for the hunter. The 4th level spell, which you get at 13th level, I think it would be really great if Hunter got Guardian of Nature. I love this spell, and I don't see it used at all because I'm not really in campaigns that go to 4th level spell in general, and once you get there, you want to choose spells that matter, you know, which is an issue, but Guardian of Nature is a great, really flavorful spell, or Death Ward. Just again, a good thing to have in your spell toolbox. Either works great. 5th level spell, you get at 17th level. I chose Hold Monster. Similar to the Hold Person, it's, you know, a good spell, and in regards to being able to, you know, master the... It sounds similar to my explanation for Dominate Beast, but it's sort of different, as in, you know, you are a hunter. You take down beasts rather than taming them. Of course, these are strictly suggestions. I think that these 2 subclasses should get spells to go along with their classes, but you can incorporate whatever spells you deem fitting for that. Now, let's go on to the Capstone subclass abilities. Now, this would give 1 extra subclass ability, but I think that's fine. It's not like the Ranger is going to be tipped to the edge of power because of it. So, why not? First, we're going to look at the Beastmaster. I think the elements that should be hit with this Capstone ability is your bond with the beast, because after reaching 20th level, you should be rewarded for spending so much time with that beast and having such a strong bond. So this is what I went with. Empowering Bond. At 20th level, your bond with your beast has become incredibly strong. As an action, you can call forth the full strength of your bond to aid you in the battlefield, gaining the following benefits for 1 minute. While you and your beast are within 30 feet of each other, you both get a bonus to AC equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum 1, and have advantage on saving throws and attack rolls. As a reaction, when either you or your beast would be attacked, you can swap places with them. You can use this effect before or after the attack is made, but before damage is rolled. And immediately after you use this effect, you or your animal companion can make an attack within 5 feet of them. After you use this feature, you can't do so again until you've taken a long rest. Now, again, it's just my suggestion. It is far from perfect, but I like that sort of warding bond type ability where, or, you know, even like the marriage ability from the ceremony spell, because I think it's really cool and underused. Just the idea of strength when you're near each other is something that I like to see more. With the Unity Cleric that the Unearthed Arcana recently released, I really love that subclass, and I really just want more of that. But whatever you think is fitting for that bond, I personally think it's quite flavorful. And the idea you can swap places, kind of similar to the Echo Fighter or such, is that sort of idea you can protect your beast, and that sort of reaction to command them, I think works really well with the class. So for the Gloomstalker, this is one I'll be going over next. You know, you want to feel very stealthy, and again, you want to really feel the heart of that class in this Capstone ability. So this is what I went with. Emissary of Shadow. At 20th level, you've nearly become one with the shadows. As an action, you can hone your connection with the shadows, getting the following benefits for 1 minute. You advantage on stealth and perception checks as well as all saving throws, and you can hide in dim light as if it were darkness or when lightly obscured. If you hit a creature who cannot see you, you deal additional damage equal to 10 plus your wisdom modifier, minimum 1. You have resistance to all damage while in darkness. You cannot use this feature again until you have finished a long rest. So basically the sort of dim light and lightly obscured is to extend the ability of the Gloomstalker's earlier ability, which is to become invisible against creatures who rely on dark vision and darkness. So basically encompassing that stealth and make it easier to hide in general, which of course goes in tangent with the next ability, which deals extra damage if creatures can't see you. And then another bonus while in darkness. This is similar to, I think, one of the Paladin subclasses. You'll see elements of that. I try to decide how powerful it should be by looking at those different Paladin subclasses. This is a little bit more powerful, but just because there is a limit to it, as you have to be in darkness, so there's more conditionality to it. Again, these are all just suggestions, but I really want to capture that stealth feel, which is why I went with that sort of hiding and sneak and very kind of roguish abilities, but while having its own unique feature that ties in well with the Gloomstalker. So with the Horizon Walker, which is the one I'll be going over next, you want to feel, you know, like that guardian of the planes. So this is what I went with. Multiverse Mastery. At 20th level, you become an emissary of the planes, battling any foe who disturbs the sanctum and balance of the planes. As an action, you can harness the extraplanar powers you've developed, gaining the following benefits for 1 minute. Whenever you shift planes or teleport, you can choose a number of creatures within 30 feet of your new or starting location, equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum 1, to take your planar warrior damage, which is 2d8 at this point, I believe. When you hit a creature with an attack and deal damage to it, you can also force it to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is magically banished to its native plane of existence if it's not currently there. On a successful save, the creature can't be banished by this feature for 24 hours. After you use this feature, you can't do so again until you have finished a long rest. Kind of similar to the both of the Watchers, I think. You have that banishment ability. It's pretty similar. I try to keep it unique, but it was almost so perfect because these classes coincide very similar to their idea of defending the planes. And it's really flavorful to be able to send them to other planes. And the other ability is, I think, goes well because not only do they have a multitude of spell that allows them to teleport, such as Misty Step, Teleportation Circle, things like that, but they also have their cost ability, which allows them to just teleport as a bonus action, which means they could technically be doing that each turn. I chose New or Old Location because I think that makes more sense if you are moving from one plane to another, because a new location might not always be good if you're escaping, but if you're not in a position originally to teleport and get to your enemy, it might be an advantage to have that afterwards. 2d8 falls similarly in line to the flat 10 damage of one of the Paladin abilities, but goes well with that Planar Warrior damage in general. Again, only suggestion, but I really wanted to master the feel of being a Planar Warrior. Next, I'm going to be talking about Monster Slayer. You want to master that feel of being able to take down these fiends and otherworldly creatures. So this is what I went with. Sword of 1,000 Foes. At 20th level, you have deciphered the weakness of the creatures you slay and have made those your strengths. As an action, you can gain the following benefits for 1 minute. You gain advantage on attacks and save throws against creatures that have the same type as your Slayer's Prey. You gain temporary hit points equal to half the damage you deal against your Slayer's Prey. After you use this feature, you cannot do so again until you have finished a long rest. So, with the Monster Slayer, Slayer's Prey is something that comes in very often. Being able to do extra stuff to creatures that are targeted by your Slayer's Prey. And, but again, it works well if you're fighting, a certain type of creature, undead and whatnot. So you can target one with Slayer's Prey, but all of those types of creatures gain that effect. I think that works a little bit better than for the Watcher's ability, which only affects certain types of creatures. This way it's a little bit more consistent and doesn't really fall flat in some regards. And then the temporary hit points ability can be pretty strong, which is why I made only 2 abilities like this. I think one of the Paladin types can heal 10 hit points flat each turn, so this is probably a little bit more on average, but I think Rangers don't have the same kind of damage output in general, so being able to heal more is a good trade-off. Again, these are just suggestions, but I wanted to capture that feel of using those previous subclass abilities, so like Slayer's Prey and whatnot, and that feel of taking down these enemies and really mastering the art of finding their weaknesses. Now, you probably noticed I've saved the Hunter until last because it's weird, since every subclass up until now for the Hunter at least, has had variety where you get to choose what ability you get. So I had to keep that consistent. I couldn't just make one. I had to go all out. So this is what I went with. Deathstalker Ranger. At 20th level, you gain one of the following abilities of your choice. This is the first option. Single Combat Master. Once per long rest, you can choose one creature, activating this effect as an action. For 1 minute, you get the following benefits against them. You critically hit against them on a 19 or 20. Advantage on attack rolls and saving throws against them, and you can use reaction to impose disadvantage on them if they attack any creature other than you. Here's the second option. Horde Cleaver. Once per long rest, you can gain the following benefits as an action for 1 minute. If there's more than one creature within 15 feet of you, you gain an extra attack per additional creature in the radius with a maximum number of bonus attacks equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum 1. When you take damage, you then gain resistance to all future attacks of that damage type. With these two effects, I wanted to sort of incorporate the things we've been seeing with the previous subclass features that is basically fitted for certain types of enemies, whether that be like big boss monsters, like the effect that deals an extra d8 damage if you've already damaged a creature. I think that one's Colossal Slayer, or more oriented towards fighting hordes, like the Horde Cleaver ability and such, which is why I wanted to sort of master that that element and feel the hunter within these two abilities. Single combat master, you're only choosing one, so this is probably a boss, but it allows you to be able to fight it much better and sort of single it out with that reaction ability, which I think is pretty flavorful for that type of combat. And then Horde Cleaver is the other one, similar to the Drunken Master, sort of getting that extra ability with more enemies that they are. And then the ability to gain resistance is just generally good. So these are my suggested changes for the Ranger subclasses and their Capstone abilities. I really love the Paladin's subclass Capstone features, and though you almost never see those Capstone abilities, there is definitely, when you look at different classes, there's a dissonance between which Capstones are obviously cool and awesome to get a 20th level and which ones really just are not. And Ranger was one of these classes that, not only on their Capstone ability, but in a multitude of ways, really falls short. And I think by giving them these cool, unique Capstone subclass abilities adds a whole new world of awesome and possibilities to this unappreciated class. So those are my thoughts on fixing the Capstone abilities and just the subclasses in general, as those unique spells, I think, are good for underpowered subclasses in general, and to prevent that power creep. If you have any ideas for potential Capstone abilities for Ranger or whatnot, let me know. Well, I hope you liked it, and is maybe something to consider if you feel that the Ranger is generally underpowered. This is Sean from Deca Dungeon. Couldn't even say my name right. Sean from Deca Dungeon, signing off.